Hello and welcome everybody. Janet Beckers here, and I'd love to introduce you to my wonderful, wonderful guest, Navid Moazzaz. Hi, Navid.
Hey, what's going on? Excited to be on the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. We're going to be talking about a topic that is super, super close to my heart, which is virtual summits. And the reason it's so close to my heart is that is actually the technique that I use to launch my business, Wonderful Web Women, which has now evolved to Romance Your Tribe. It's the reason that I went from having nobody knowing me, having a mailing list, which was actually just my mum, to thousands and thousands of people, winning awards, replacing 12 months worth of income with just in a short time, all based on this particular strategy. So since then, a lot has changed. And so I've invited Navid along because he's the man that knows how to run these so well now, the most strategic way to do them, the way for it to work now rather than the way that it used to work when I did it 10 years ago. So that's why I'm excited about this. But before we get started, let's just I'd love to introduce the people, everybody here to you, Navid, just because, just so they can get a little bit of an insight about who you are and why you've gone down this track before we start diving into any of that sort of strategy stuff. So, so tell us a little bit about you. Like, why are you so passionate about this particular way of doing business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't always this way with kind of the summits and all this. I actually was kind of, stumble across it because I was doing a podcast, similar to this. I was doing that a few years ago. And, because everyone, they were talking about, okay, got to launch a podcast. And I think it's a great vehicle. I definitely think I can, and it fits in with what I'm doing now. It's just when I did it, I started basically from scratch and I was building relationships with some influencers and all this, but I wasn't growing my email list. I wasn't generating that much revenue at all when I started out. So, and I was blogging, podcasting, doing that. And then I stumbled across these summits in the health niche because they appeared to be free. So I signed up for them and I saw like, okay, how are they doing this? How are they generating so many subscribers? In some cases I saw they were generating tens of thousands, if not sometimes hundreds of thousands of email subscribers for one kind of online event, a virtual summit. And I also checked out how they're monetizing. So they had an all access pass. They were sometimes promoting something in the back end and all this. And some of these summits, they were doing millions of dollars in revenue. I was like, holy shit, how are they doing this? Yeah. I'm doing this podcast, which is a great vehicle, but I wanted to kind of level up my business quicker. Podcast is not the best list building and kind of right away. This is more for me, if I would do a podcast today, it would be more to kind of connect with my existing audience rather than just kind of skyrocket and build a new one. So that's kind of how. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can feel the same, but like podcast, I think it's a fantastic kind of always week in and week out, have a consistent schedule to connect with your existing audience. But unless you have a massive following, it's not going to kind of do that much when you're starting from scratch. Whereas a virtual summit, it's kind of an online event. It's kind of like a podcast or webinar on steroids. That's kind of how I like to put it, right?
That's
so you have multiple speakers. Yeah, I mean, you have multiple speakers on. So you have 20 to 30 experts typically over, let's say, 5 to 7 days. And some of them will come on and promote you. They will promote you to their email list, their most valuable asset. And that's how you are basically growing your audience. And obviously, we can get into how you actually add value to the speakers. That's part of our virtual summit master. That's kind of my system and my program and how we're teaching this. We actually go really big on making it a win-win-win. So a win for you, you're going to grow your audience, you're going to grow your business from the summit, but also a win for your speakers. They're going to, get something out of this. They're going to grow their business from this. And also for your audience, obviously, you want to add value to them. That's kind of, I guess you wanted to get into a little bit. It's also kind of the difference, before and now, I think.
Let's do.
So that's kind of how we can start this off.
Yeah. Well, there was something there in giving you a little bit of an insight into Navid is because I find the kind of strategies that people specialize in really reflects a lot about their personality, like the kind of things that you get drawn to. Now, we met, we were both in a high-end mastermind with Ryan Levesque called the Elite mastermind. So we actually got to know each other really quite well through, even though there were a lot of people in the group through that year, because it's not only were we having an opportunity every week to communicate, but we had, retreats away and lots of time. So you get to know people really well. And I just loved how you were saying then about a core part to what your approach has been, what's going to be in for everybody. Everything's got to be a win-win-win. And that was one thing I really noticed about you in all of our connections throughout that whole year of Elite was, and everybody listening, you'll really get to see this with Navid, is you've always very much focused on the other people rather than yourself. Like every time that you would be contributing to conversations, anytime you would be, sharing and presenting to the group, everything was always focused on what was going to help everybody else, what was the win for other people. And so it makes perfectly good sense to me that you approach your marketing using a strategy that is very much focused on what's in here for absolutely everybody else. It's very much a connection sort of personality, I guess, that can be really attracted to doing this sort of strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just wanted to just kind of backing things up a little bit. I mean, that was a fantastic year. Actually, I think I definitely got to know everyone right away because I won some kind of prize or like the super share. I remember that the first Elite Mastermind. So I had to kind of go up there and share. And obviously then people familiarized themselves with me a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, really kind of there was I had, as I said, I had the podcast. Then I did my first summit. So before that, I only had about 900 to 1,000 email subscribers. That was in 2014, so a few years ago. Yeah. And I hosted my first summit, brought on a bunch of speakers on there, obviously, and then I got about 3,000 email subscribers from that summit and $20,000 in profit. That actually was the vehicle that I could quit my job and move abroad and basically start living the lifestyle I do now. But if I would have stopped there with one summit, and that's also what kind of is unique with how we are doing things, then it would have ended there basically, because a lot of people, they don't leverage the momentum. So you're going to take that summit. That's a springboard for you to take your business to another level. So I quickly grew my business from that initial success, making like $20,000 in profit from that summit to multiple six figures, like in the next year, like making $200K the next year. Like we hosted another summit, did like almost 30,000 subscribers the next one, and then basically that took my business, the 3x more to 600K, from 200K to 600K. So it was like it just growing very quickly, and then making an impact as we go, because the lifetime value of a summit attendee, and even more kind of the people who purchased the all access pass of the summit, it's very high. We have made, of that, our most successful summit, which did almost 30,000 subscribers, we have actually made over $1 million from that one summit. So it's pretty interesting how it works. Like if you can just monetize the audience. Yeah.
Well, let's dive into that. So I think one of the things that to give everybody here a little bit of a structure for you taking your notes, what we'll do first is we'll really get super clear on actually what a summit is, so that you can understand exactly what is a summit and how does it work. And then Navid and I thought, because I actually launched my business with a summit, but things have changed. So we're going to go into, the difference between what worked back then and what's working now, so that you can really get an idea, and we'll give you some reality checks on what kind of timelines are involved here, what kind of, what you need to know before you start going down this track. So let's do that. So the first thing, let's just do like a really simple, how does, from the simple things that, like, what actually is a summit, like how, on a very briefly overview of what is it, how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, as I mentioned a little bit, alluded to before, it's, a multi-speaker event over a few days, right? So you might can be a smaller summit too, can be like a one-day summit even, but I think when you're starting out and you want to kind of blow up your business a little bit more, it's more beneficial to you to host, let's say, a 5 to about 7 day summit, because you can have more speakers on there. So let's say 20 to 30 speakers, because let's say you only would have, let's say, 5 to 10 speakers. you might not get all of them to promote you initially. You're going to have a mix of kind of different levels of speakers and all that. And so it's more beneficial to have kind of this balance, 20 to 30. In some exceptions, you can have maybe 10 to 15, but usually most people, 20 to 30, you will do well. And the summit is typically free to sign up for. You want to grow your email list. You want to grow your audience from this. And essentially you're getting paid to grow that email list, which is really cool with the way we are teaching it. And then you have an all access pass basically as the instant after they opt in, they give you their email address. Then you have an upgrade for the all access pass. That includes typically recordings, can be some great bonuses that is like helping people to implement the content. Can be action guides, session notes. You can have also bump offers. You can have a lot of different things to kind of maximize that lifetime value even more. And that's basically creates your products, right? Your speakers are creating your product for you. So even if you don't have a product yet and you're feeling like, how can I do this? Well, you don't need one. I didn't have one before I hosted my first summit. And then my all access pass or my premium pass became my first product. So that's pretty
brilliant.
Cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the thing here for people who this is a totally new concept to, because this is the thing I used to find that people couldn't get their head around is around the list building, is you will have all of these speakers, but in order for people to be able to know where do they hear the interviews, what time does it start, all of that sort of stuff, in order for anybody to be able to take part in it, they have to join your mailing list. So really you've got everybody that's going to be sharing that this is coming up. They all have to go, you're the gatekeeper. They go through your opt-in page. That's how you build your mailing list.
Exactly. And you can do pre-recorded too. I wanted to mention so people don't feel overwhelmed. You don't need to do live sessions. Here's what we recommend so you can build a maximum engagement. So if you're doing this the first time, do recorded. So you do recorded sessions with the speakers. Let's say you have 20 speakers, you do 20 recorded sessions with them. During the summit, you could include kind of a live kickoff, during the time it's happening. There's some advanced strategies too later. You can turn it evergreen and stuff like that. But the first time you're doing it, like include a few live sessions, like kind of like office hours, maybe in a Facebook group, just to kind of add that kind of, engagement and connection with the audience as well. So they feel you're part of it. You can also have comments and stuff like that. But it's just that, I'm sure your audience, they've seen these in a regular conference. It's essentially, you're bringing it kind of online, just having it free for a limited time. Usually it's 24 to 48 hours availability from when a session go live during the summit. Then it pulls, basically you lock it down in the vault, the all access pass. That's kind of what's going on here.
Yeah.
That's how you're also monetizing. And a lot of people upgrade. I mean, you'll be surprised. Like, a good, I would say a decent upgrade rate would be, from free opt-ins to paid is about, let's say 4 to 6%. Then anything above 6% is considered pretty good. So we have students even getting 21 to 30% in some, cool, in some niches, like in the heart niche. And we had one in the play therapy niche getting a very high conversion rate, and recent one in kind of teaching, Spanish language or for teachers basically. So that was pretty cool. Got a very high conversion rate for the all access pass as well.
So I love this idea. And the nice part is when it comes to sort of understanding all the steps in this, understand that you've got a fantastic checklist for people to be able to use, haven't you? So they can go there and have a look at all the different things that actually the logistics that take part in doing this. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's just on my site, navidmoazzaz.com/VSM/cheat sheet. You can link that up. Also, we have a free guide without any opt-in. It's just virtualsummitguide.com basically, and you can check it out there. So it breaks down all the steps if you are going fast or anything like that. And sometimes we have also a master class you're running, so you can check out there. If just simply email me if you're on my list or something. I'll get back to you guys.
So let's have a look. So just so that if you're listening here and you're going, but I can't understand all the parts. So no, that's okay, because you can go there and you can get all the details on there. So what we want to do today is we want to give you an overview of you starting to think about what you could do yourself and how you would use this in your own business. And then we'll just go through some of those decision points and excuse me, and we'll look at some of the, how you're going to make the most of it. So that way we'll be able to see like what worked for me and what stopped working. And what's work really, really well now. So the very first thing is let's have a look at the topics, because when I launched mine was launching a business called Wonderful Web Women, and I had absolutely no street cred at all in that area. So for me, I thought, well, if I can find the most successful women in the world, I don't have to be the expert here. I'm not the boss. Like, I'm not the one that's saying, look at me, I know everything. I was really positioning myself as the passionate reporter, which is a really powerful way to start out, because it allows you to be able to go, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. So it takes the pressure off you if you're not feeling like you're the legend. But for me, it was easy because I could go back then, like nobody was doing them. Like I found it very difficult to find people to learn how to do it. So I had to pull everything together separately, like find somebody to teach me how to do interviews, another person to guide me on the tech stuff, and another one on joint venture. So I had to kind of bolt it all together. But for me, I just did the topic on, find the most, learn from the most successful women online. Now that worked exceptionally well back then because there wasn't a platform. As not only people we could go for that, they couldn't find these female role models. There just weren't many, and also there wasn't, for these wonderful successful women, there weren't as many platforms for there to get their message out. So it was, as you said at the beginning, what's in it for everybody. That topic worked really well, but I don't think it would work very well now. It's way too general. So from what's changed
I was going to get to that.
Yeah. So what's changed for you now? Like, what would you recommend for people to take into consideration working out their topic?
Yeah, obviously, like 10 years. I mean, telesummits was what it kind of called when it came to the scene, and all this kind of the teleseminars and all this. Usually, actually, they were not even that high. I mean, there were some were great content and all this, but the problem is sometimes I think it was not even video initially, and that kind of came a little bit later. Now, it was not really. It was harder. At least you could probably it was kind of maybe more advanced at the time to do what we are doing now with Zoom or whatever. It's really easy these days to stream video if
you could pre-record, but you had no way of playing it back to start at a certain time. So you had to either do them live or you had to be there and click start for the replay. It was very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. It was harder. But now these days, I think the high perceived value, I mean, there's podcasts and they're audio and they're great and you're sharing maybe stories and stuff like that on a podcast. But I think like really having video on a summit, that's also ups the game a little bit, and it doesn't have to be too hard. I mean, I'm right now, for example, I'm traveling, I'm here in the US at the time we're doing this. I just kind of bought something on Home Depot. Like this background is not a real brick, if you're seeing this, this looks good. But I just bought this for I think didn't cost me too much to get it. It's just peel and stick or whatever, and you put it on. That's kind of how easy it could be to have a little bit more professional setups these days. And then obviously lighting, we have, you can have a ring light, whatever. It doesn't have to be that. But I think it's the barrier to have a good quality. It's easier these days. So that's why it's kind of a little bit expected that you do the bare minimum to do that. And also in terms of kind of this topic, which we talked about, I think having a niche summit, instead of having a broad one, just kind of teaching, women in online business or something, maybe doing in terms of, I can share some examples from students instead of having a fitness summit or a health summit, I think going deeper, not even a strength summit, maybe a women's strength summit, right? So it's, for women, by women. And by doing that, you'll be a lot more successful. Like this student, instead of maybe not succeeding at all because it would be too broad and, disappear, she did 20,000 opt-ins and over $60,000 in revenue, basically starting in a new kind of brand from scratch there. So that's kind of what can happen if you go more niche. I'm not saying you will do 20,000 opt-ins, but at least a few thousand, right? You will get more people excited to promote what you are doing because it's also some industries, they're more competitive, and the more competitive an industry is, you're going to see how you can stand out, either having different speakers or maybe the topic, different angle. You're going to definitely find a unique hook for what you're doing in order to stand out in a competitive marketplace. So I think that's even more important these days.
Absolutely. And, I remember we had a discussion last time we got together and we chatted. You had there was one particular thing that you said that stuck with me ever since, which was such good advice, is when you're choosing your topic, narrowing it right down, but and then the next step was, instead of, say, running a topic on something that you're already known well for, is step up and think, what do I really want to be known for?
Yeah.
And start looking at those topics. For me, that was of course, you could run one on, an area that you're already feeling confident in and you've got a following in, but use this to help you step up. Yeah, I think that's really...
I think that's great. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because you might be, or let's say you're right now a lawyer, but you don't want to be known as a lawyer anymore. I mean, then maybe you should think about, what I really want to do? What am I passionate about? What am I interested in? You don't have to have the benefit of a summit. Actually, you don't need to have expertise right now. Obviously, it can help you if you have some expertise to create courses and other things in the back end. But even if you don't, you can be someone who you don't have expertise. You can still get great speakers because you're the facilitator. You're hosting the event, and you're building essentially your brand by association. You can build almost instant authority. I mean, there's no such a thing as an overnight success, right? But that's kind of what happens with, when you're hosting a summit and you're putting people next to your, face, and they see you there. So you position yourself. Even we have had students, he had never had an e-commerce store, right, in Amazon. And he's not even saying that I'm teaching this or anything. He's just hosting events. And now he's actually just started. He started with summits, did like 5 or 6 of them, and really successful. He's from Lithuania, not even a native English speaker. And now he just hosted his first offline conference with like 200 people in Prague. So that's what's going to happen. Like, from virtual to offline events, because the most stupid thing, excuse the expression, like hosting an offline event or something like that when you're starting out. And I hear people coming to me, I want to host this event and get like 500 people show up. It's very difficult to get people to show up in a location.
Absolutely,
but when you have an audience, you have an audience who are interested in what you are doing, it's a lot easier. So build the audience first with a summit, for example, in this case, we're talking about this, and then you can do a lot of other things like launching courses, launching high ticket, launching, offline events, and, the list goes on and on there.
Yeah, I love it. That's the next part, because you are the passionate reporter. So even if you are recognized as having expert in a particular area, think about how you want to be at the next stage. And that's why it's also a great one when you're starting out. If you know what your niche is, you can, really, put yourself on the map really quickly. Now, let's talk about the next part, because once people have worked out their niche, then the next thing is, how on earth am I going to convince these people to actually even say, yes, I'll be happy to be interviewed? And then even the next step, well, hopefully some of them will go, well, yeah, sure, and I'll let my list of incredibly engaged people who love me, I'll tell them about this and get them to come over and sign up for you. So I'll help you build your list. But to get those people, I know what I had to do when I first started, because nobody knew me. I'm really curious about what's your advice for people, like what things are the core things that they need to keep in mind to get people to say yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so what I recommend first is to create this list. I mean, use Google Sheets, or you can use I use Airtable now. It's like a Google Sheets on steroids, basically. But I put together my lists, and it's kind of a dream 100 list or wish list, whatever you want to call it. And the first kind of influencer outreach list doesn't have to be only of people that's going to be a perfect fit for your summit. That's kind of influence in your market, and it's good to have overflow of influencers to potentially connect with, right? So I do that first, put together that and like research. I mean, as you get, more seasoned in your business, you could probably have, VA or someone like that research. But again, I think the connections, you're going to kind of make them in some way. It's kind of like it's harder to outsource authentic connections, right? So you got to definitely do that. I think that's really important. I do still to this day. I mean, I'm planning a summit right now and in the big process of doing this right now. And I'm doing all these kind of calls with the potential speakers, connecting with them. But if you're newer to this, I would recommend, if you have time, basically start kind of being on the radar are. Maybe you have been in programs, masterminds, whatever. In that case, kind of add value to them. Like obviously it's the easiest to get in front of someone if you have been in a mastermind or if you have, bought a program. If you haven't, let's say a book or a podcast, maybe they have a podcast, leave a review, do the kind of low hanging fruit to actually get in front of them. Maybe they have Facebook Lives every week, show up there, comment, get on their email list, right? So you got to do these things and stand out. Most people are actually not doing this. So you can be the person doing it and just do that. Then you'll stand out.
It sounds really basic 101. Like number one is you're being super organized. You've actually got your hit list, or your love list, however you want to put it. These are the people I want. So you're systematic. But then a lot of times what I always found, because when I used to teach how to do this stuff, and then it was like a period of time where it was sort of like, this is great. So I used to get invites all the time from people who were either in my program, that was fine, or even external. And my students never did this, and I know your students never would, but other people would come to me and I go, you just want to pimp my list. Like I know that this is just a cut and paste. I've got no relationship with you at all. So they're coming in cold. And so our reaction was, I just had a cut and paste, no thanks, but goodbye. But the big...
No, I'm glad you bring this up. This is so good. Yeah.
I can't stand it because it was obvious that they weren't thinking about me. And so when you've said about get it on their radar, and the other thing that I see people do wrong when they do that is they go total fangirl. And so there's you want to position yourself as an equal, as somebody who's got a brain, somebody who they would be, like to get to know. So if you're on those Facebook Lives and you're going, oh my God, you're just fantastic, I love what you do, which is lovely, but you're positioning yourself as a fangirl. Ask really intelligent questions. Share.
Like the one who's standing in line to take a picture with the one who's like, can I have a picture with you? I mean, that's nice, but that's the wrong approach.
Absolutely.
You should take a picture if I ever take a picture with an influencer or someone, I see them as peers. I don't see them as, they might make more money than me, but I don't see them as higher value than me for that reason.
No.
That's kind of the big thing.
Oh, absolutely. So think about if you've got a peer who's doing Facebook Live, if we just go with that example, they're doing it because they want engagement. So help them get engagement, share with it. Say, I learnt this from you and I got this result. Those sorts of things, like it's, just because that's the big difference. You either come in cold going, I want you to do this for me and let me just pimp your list, or they go total fangirl, which is a real turn off. So that's a really good point. So that's number one, is really building up those relationships as first. Is there anything else that you can give as a tip to help people to get those first people?
I would... For sure. I would say that obviously you're hosting the summit, so you can build a relationship as you go. I would say make this part of kind of your habits to build relationships. That should be kind of second nature to you in business anyway, to do that, because otherwise it's going to feel forced, I think, because of course, if you want to host a summit in 3 months or 4 months from now, right? Okay, you don't have as much time to do this, but that's fine. You can still host a successful summit. You just keep that in your mind to always build a relationship, always be doing this, right? So you might have your big list of, let's say, 100 people in your industry. As you go, build relationships with these people, even if they are not speaking at your first summit. So getting into kind of the emails and stuff like that, how do you reach out to people? Helps when you have a relationship, because then you can refer to something in the email. Otherwise, if I don't know them, I tend to reference something in the opening line of the email. And then the trick can also be to have a video invite that could obviously make you stand out a little bit. You still need to have an email. You still need to have a solid email though, so they click that link to the video. But either way, mention something specific. Maybe they have maybe you found them through a community and they did some really awesome training. Mention that. Mention something specific. If you have taken a program of theirs, mention that, whatever it is. And then you got a name drop, basically add social proof. You're going to say, okay, here's what I'm doing. I'm hosting this summit. And if you know roughly your numbers, what you're going to expect, say that. Otherwise, you can guesstimate a little bit maybe what you're hoping to get from it, but don't over exaggerate too much, because obviously people find out about things and it's not good.
And they just, that's bullshit when it comes up anyway.
And that's basically the email. I mean, and then you can go, if they're not, I mean, we make a distinction of like A-listers, the kind of celebrity influencers, trusted authorities, they have good, solid audiences, and then up-and-comers. I think the audiences that are most useful to kind of most people, at least, that would be trusted authorities and up-and-comers. A-listers, they're great for being on the summit and driving people. People know them for sure. It's exciting to have them on and all this, but they are not always promoting because they are very busy. They have promo schedules. They are scheduled out, stuff like that. So I'm always searching for people who kind of, they're just coming up to the space sometimes. They've been maybe a year or two in the space sometimes, but they are growing very quickly. And I'm like, wow, how are they doing this? And I'm actually intrigued myself to learn from them sometimes. That's why I bring them on board for my summits. You might even see we hosted List Building School 2.0 in this year, basically. And I'm always kind of in the lookout for new people who didn't even know maybe a year ago, but now I found them because I did some research, and I love that. I love finding new people like that. They can be A-listers in a year from now. By the way, they can become the next A-listers. Become friends with people like that. It's never a bad idea to become friends with the up-and-comers, because they are going to become, in some cases, the next kind of Tony Robbins almost, in the space.
That is such a good point, because a lot of times people will just go and try to get, I always say, go for the top first. If you can get those few big names, then that helps the others to come on board. But really, when it comes to your list building and your traction, that's a great tip. It's going to be more the up and coming that are going to be the ones that help you to grow your list and that get much more involved. That is a brilliant, brilliant tip. When I ran my summit, the thing that made it really successful was the invitation that I sent out to people. And I just use headings of, what is the project? Why have I chosen you? And so I really was very specific about why them, and then just really clear, what's in it for you? Really long. What's in it for me? Really short. What do I expect of you? Really short. What can you expect of me? Really long. And then a call to action. And that was just really the simple thing.
I tend to make the first email quite short, by the way. I mean, I think you can add some more stuff to the first email. I tend to make the first thing kind of to just gather interest from them. Yeah. And then I basically I usually try to get on a call with them, because having kind of a video call, or at the very least an audio call, if you can't meet them in person, obviously it's kind of hard to do that with everyone. I think just having a call with them just kind of speeds up that relationship building, also builds rapport. And then when you do the session, it's a lot easier. And also there, I ask them, how can we make this a super big win for you to participate in my summit? And then I focus on that first, basically, building that relationship. And then I ask them, okay, so we are having the dates of the summit is this and this date. Would that work for you to share it with your audience? And be getting so far, at least for this one, I have 100% of people. I've had about 26 calls so far. So it's not just 26 calls with the potential, with speakers, speakers on my next summit. And 100% of them have said, yes, we are promoting it. We are going behind this.
That is brilliant. You know what that is absolute gold there, because that's the hardest part, is getting to people to promote. That was the thing. Mine was much smaller, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that is absolute gold, is what, the stronger the relationship you've got with people, and the stronger, commitment that they feel to you, then they're going to promote for you. And that's where it's going to be successful, your summit. So that is, it's a lot of extra work having those 26 calls. But then the other side of it is, what a privilege to have 26 calls with people who are doing great stuff.
They're 10-minute calls. They're 10 minutes to max 15 minutes. They're not even that long, right? But then also you have to keep in mind, if someone doesn't promote for you the first time around, don't get discouraged. Sometimes the first time around, you're not as successful as you hope to be, right? So it's important to kind of talk about that part of it as well. We've had students in the health space, and they maybe did 700 to 1,000 opt-ins, which some markets is a lot. For that market, it wasn't that much. And he got a little bit discouraged. But then he saw, okay, I didn't have the right speakers on board, which is a big thing. You need to have the right speakers that are aligned with whatever you want to do. You need to have the right topic. We talked about that. His topic was a little bit off. And then it took him one or kind of another 2 summits. And then he figured out, and he went into the fasting niche, right? And then he started to crush it with 15,000 to 20,000 opt-ins per summit, and scaled business up to well over 6 figures. And that's just because he nailed that down and also didn't give up. Like, you can't really fail unless you do give up. Like, that's what happens with most people. They give up before they actually reach success.
That is such brilliant advice. And that goes for so much in business is, you know what, sometimes the first time it's not that technique didn't work or you were no good at it. It's just you've got to keep on sticking with it. That's just such brilliant advice for everything, I reckon, in business. Yeah, that is huge. So I'm just aware of our time, so we'll just sort of tie up with just a couple of things for people who are listening is the next part. So we've talked about the list building. So the advantage here, really just going over the core things that I want everybody here to really keep in mind is, you want to, this is about relationships. So this is going to be taking part in a long-term game, even though this is a strategy that makes the most of that opportunity. So you've got, it's about a long-term with relationships. Really think about your topic of being narrow as you can and where you want to be known for. And then, your list building, the stronger your relationships that you've got with the people who you invite, the more likely they are to promote, and especially those up-and-comings are going to do it for you. So we've talked about the list building. The next part that I want to be able to finish up on here is show me the cash, baby. So maybe if we can talk about like the simplest way to make money and then just 1 or 2 extra things that you can add on.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, the simplest way, let's start with the All Access Pass. That's the common thing people kind of upsell to the All Access Pass. So the summit is free to sign up for, obviously. Then you have an All Access Pass. Sometimes people call it Premium Pass or whatever, VIP Pass. That's kind of the recordings, audios, and can be some extra bonuses, can be transcripts. Don't do transcripts unless you know your somebody's going to do well, because it can be very expensive.
It can be very expensive. Point. Yeah.
It's not needed. I didn't have it for some of my, multi-6-figure launches. So I didn't have it for everything I did. But now for the next one, you might do some stuff with transcripts. And also it's just more useful if you want to create like action guides, session notes. It just speeds up the process a little bit to have that. And then you can also include bonuses from speakers and stuff like that. And also even for the free summit, include speakers, lead magnets and all that to kind of add value. But that's kind of the essence of an All Access Pass. So you just bundle in things that helps people even more with it. So I think these days you're going to do a little bit more than just adding the recordings. Just add something extra. Can be a Q&A call, can be some private, some extra kind of be coupons for tools, deals for tools, freebies and stuff like that. That's what you want to have in your All Access Pass.
Yeah, that's great. It's about people being able to implement, isn't it? Rather than just
absolutely. Yes. So that's the All Access Pass. And you can make, some people ask, can you make real money from an All Access Pass? And the answer is you can. We've had students making, 6 figures from an All Access Pass promoting it. I made, multi-6 figures from it, but, that's, even beyond that, you can, I know some summits that are doing millions of dollars in just a low ticket one. Obviously you need volume in that case, but it's definitely possible. I would say if you're starting out, you can definitely do anywhere from like $20,000 to, $40,000, $50,000. That's kind of the spectrum. If you're starting absolutely from scratch, that's something, a lot of our students at least are doing those numbers when they come into the program.
And what sort of
so that's pretty good, right?
What sort of price point would the All Access Pass be?
For sure, $67 to $97. Like you have a one-time offer for like say $67, then it can go up to $97. Again, depends on your market. I would be careful depending on the market. Some students might charge, $27 to $47 in our community, but I think for most markets, at least $67 to $97 tend to work well. If you're in more professional markets like with B2B and stuff like that, you could consider even a little bit higher. But again, depends on your strategy. I think for me, I want to turn as many, email subscribers, basically free attendees, into buyers as possible. That's why I keep the price point a little bit lower, right? So that's just my strategy behind it. It works well. And then in the back end, you can have, online courses. You can have membership sites. You can have high ticket. Even high ticket is a great strategy we're going to implement for my next summit, right? So we have a high ticket program now for Virtual Summit Mastery, and we kind of having coaching in that. So we might do via application, and that's, you can get application calls on a summit as well. You can do it from the very beginning when people opt into the summit, in the emails and during sessions, and even afterwards as well, get them onto a webinar or something like this.
Excellent.
So that's a great strategy. And then sponsorships, that would be kind of another one. Might not be for everyone, but I think a lot of our students these days, they are getting either paid sponsorships for, just a few $1,000 or sometimes multiple 5 figures, or they're getting kind of this promotional mixed with paid sponsorships, or just promo sponsorships, or simply just having kind of some deals from a tool. Like, let's say I'm doing list building school, I might feature ConvertKit on there because it's a relevant tool, and they provide, let's say, a 30-day trial or a 60-day trial for the paid people. So you can, they are very open in some markets to doing things like that. So you can kind of test the waters a little bit with incorporating some kind of sponsors on there, or like you can also adds value to your summit, the authority, because you have logos on there and stuff like that.
Absolutely, sponsored by. So, yeah, that's great. You know what, there's something that the way that mine worked, the way that I monetized mine when I started, and I'm just curious to see if this works still. So, I mean, first of all, I was launching a membership site. Which I really only decided to do like 2 weeks before I started it. But that was how I would make my money. And that worked well. I got members straight away and had recurring income, which was brilliant. But the other way where I made money was, and I only had 8 speakers, and I'll share with you a moment who the 8th one was, because that's where I made the money. But so because it was all done live and it was once a week, and the whole idea of doing 20 odd was just almost impossible to do back then. You couldn't do that and sleep. But what did happen then, which I don't know if this would work now, is they were 60-minute interviews, and each one was on a specific topic, and each of them sold. Each of them made a pitch, and I made a commission on every one of those. And so that's where I can remember that was the first time I made $12,000 in commissions on a 60-minute call. And I was only like 4 weeks into me starting the business, and I just went, yes, I've made it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Would that work now?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I've seen also kind of Marissa Murgatroyd doing a little bit like that for her superhero summit. She used to do these before they were really successful, actually. So basically the concept, and I think it works a little bit better when you have kind of live sessions for kind of making a pitch, but either way it could work. I think the reason I'm not doing this, I want to have like a value-based event without pitches. And I still do include the speakers lead magnets. They can't be a paid right away offer, but I do include speakers lead magnets. If there's a software, I might include a trial to the software or a deal to it, for example. So that I think works. And it's not to say that this other strategy doesn't work. I think it's just a matter of what you prefer to do. What I'm doing as well, maybe afterwards I might, promote some of the speakers to my list, for example, if it's a good fit. I might provide like a resource bundle or something with a free lead magnets of the speakers and promote that after. So I just like to create a value-based event, and also depends a little bit on what you have afterwards. And another thing I forgot to mention, affiliate marketing is a big thing. So you can also promote someone after the summit. Let's say, actually, for my first summit I hosted, I promoted Ramit Sethi after my first. I had grown my list with 3,000 people, so I had a very engaged audience after that. So I promoted him, and I made, I think it was like 32,000 something, and plus I made the cash price because I won his affiliate contest. I made over $40,000 the month after my first summit, and that's basically, without having my own product, you can do this because you need just an engaged audience, and then you can absolutely promote something else. It's just a matter of kind of how I kind of like to promote something specific rather than promoting everyone at the same time. It's kind of just my philosophy a little bit.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, that's the big change that I can see in the way that they were done and the way they are done now. I would not do pictures on every interview now, but I think it is much classier. Yeah,
it's also not as evergreen, by the way. Like, we are thinking a lot about like what can we do with this summit afterwards. So we're teaching like how can you multiply this? How can you repurpose the content? How can you turn it even to an evergreen summit or relaunch the summit afterwards? If you're having pitches in every one and they might be time sensitive, it's not gonna work the best afterwards. So I would just kind of be thoughtful of this. Be thoughtful what you're saying during sessions. Do you really need to say, welcome to the summit, single thing? Then it might be harder for you to turn it into a podcast later, because Chandler Bolt, which is one of our students, he turned his two summits into a podcast that made a few $100,000 extra for his business. That was just the same content as he used 2 years for his virtual summit. And afterwards, like a year later, he turned it into a podcast that is really successful.
I love it. I love that whole idea of what can you leverage. So I might just share one story, and then I'm aware of our time. We'll have to wrap up because I'm aware of your time. I'm very, very grateful for your time, because I know that you're actually, as we're recording this, you're actually in the middle of organising your own summit. So the one thing when it came to monetizing, the thing that made the huge difference for me, that this is the one that really brought in the money for me, was, making the affiliate sales was awesome. Getting people onto a low price membership, I had a special for $37 instead of $47. That worked really well. But the big thing that made the difference was I had 8 speakers. Now you would have a lot more. But the 8th person who I'd put down, their gatekeeper was on stuffing me around. And it got close to the end of time, and I went, I have not got time to organise this. So I'm going to find another person who's going to be the 8th speaker, and I'm going to make it me. And so on the sales page, or the sign-up page, I had the 8th speaker was Janet Beckers, talking about how she built a list of thousands and replaced her income in 8 short weeks, and how you can too. And so
that's awesome.
So I love that. It was a little bit gutsy, because I had to then go and do it. So I actually just found somebody who had turned up to every live call, and I said, do you want a job to get in the spotlight? You can interview me. But what I did is, because every other speaker had been pitching something, well, it was congruent for me to pitch something, and so I didn't have anything. So I sold. At the end, I pitched, who would like to do, I think it was like a 6-week course, and I'll run you through live how you can build a list of thousands in 8 short weeks. And that's where I made at that. For me back then, even making $1,000 was huge. So I think for that first sale, I made something like $40,000.
Wow, that's incredible. And actually, I forgot to. I do recommend highly, actually, if you have some expertise or you want to share. If you're new to your market, even then, I recommend you put yourself on the summit. Actually, at least do 10 lessons learned from, let's say, list building school, or 10 lessons learned from this fitness summit. Do that, and you will actually be seen more. You want to be seen in the spotlight a little bit on your own summit, of course. And that's why we typically recommend people doing like a live kickoff initially, because then the first session always usually the most viewed, and typically at least. So do a live kickoff like the day before the summit. So you kick things off. You also get a big spike in sales for that if you structure it correctly and stuff like that. And then at the end of the summit, you do a 10 lessons learned, and then afterwards, you can obviously promote an affiliate offer. You can lead into whatever you want afterwards. So do a survey. Absolutely survey your list after you build that up and see what they kind of want. Do a deep dive survey like Ryan Levesque talks about.
That is really good. Yeah. Do you be on number 1? I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, doing the number 1, and then that follow-up one. As soon as I did that, apart from it made me money, but it positioned me as an equal. And as soon as I did that, I started getting contacts from people saying, we want to interview you. Can you come to America and present at our conference? Because you're obviously at the same level as the people who you have been interviewing. Okay, sure.
Seems like our story is pretty similar. Like I'm just listening what you're saying here. Like I had a pretty similar experience when I did my first one, because people started asking me. I was not really having a big kind of pitch or anything on my summit for VSM, Virtual Summit Mastery, but I got a similar experience that people started asking me, how did I do it? We want to learn from you. And obviously then I accidentally put together, I had to put together the program. People were asking me. It's a lot easier when people come to you and ask you, okay, we want this from you. Now I go create it instead of trying to guess what people want, right? So that's what happened.
Absolutely. And you know what? The secret to that, to why my business took off and why yours has taken off, is we both went, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'll work out how to do this.
Yeah. You work it out, right? It was my first online course. They also become kind of my most successful. I mean, that they're still running today. It's actually coming up on 4-year anniversary in September.
Right.
So it's been running strong since VSM 1.0. We also had the pilot since like early 2015. The pilot was running. Then took me a few months, and then we launched the flagship, and now we're on to VSM 3.0. So
that's brilliant. And you know what? Yeah, I did the same thing. I ran mine for a few years, and it started off at like $400, and then and ended up selling for $2,000 until I noticed things changed a lot in the industry. As soon as podcasts came out, the way that I was doing it just wasn't going to work anymore. So I stopped selling it because I didn't want to give people the wrong thing. And I've actually looked in the back end of what Navid's doing in his I've actually, you actually took me through that, and you have done.
We did a call about it.
You have done such a brilliant job. Really step-by-step template. Brilliant job. Like, just go to you. Like, you know how to do it really, really well. So, yeah. Well, we better wrap up. We've been here a while. This is like a huge masterclass.
It's been so fun to chat with someone who has also experience. It's not every day I do that, so that's
okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah, we can share some real war stories.
I'm sure we could talk about this kind of for hours, sharing summit stories and like how things are going and things like that. So
very hard to do it without a beer, though. That's the next step.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time. For people now, in terms of, I love people to be able to take action this week. So what would you say for people who are listening now? Like, what's something they can do this week that's going to help them to prepare to be able to run a telesummit?
Hey, I would say, like, if you're considering hosting this, you want to explode your email list, authority, and all of that we talked about here today. I think start kind of thinking about, first of all, topic you can run it on. I mean, if you're already doing something in your business, I mean, it should be pretty simple. Think about if you already have a product, think about how your summit can be aligned with whatever you're currently doing or what you want to be doing, and then start building these relationships. I think that we talked about as well. Start kind of simple things, right? Building that list of people, even if, whether or not you're joining a summit program like mine, Virtual Summit Mastery, or you're going to do something else. I think having that dream list of people that you want to connect with and build real relationships with would be really powerful for you. No matter what you're doing in business, you got to do that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's great advice. So that's my challenge to you, everybody that's listening here, is go and, if this is something, the idea of doing a summit works for you, go over and so if we go to, we've got romanceyourtribe.com/summits. If you just go there, that will take you to where you can get the guide for you to actually know exactly what's involved in doing this. So go and do that, and then follow Navid's advice, and just, those, even if you don't go ahead with doing a telesummit, having those relationships and systematically, creating friends, that's what it is, creating friendships and investing the time in them is going to grow your business. Yeah. Thank you so much for today. And I can't wait to see the summit that you've got that you're working on now, to see when that's coming out. And you know what? You've convinced me. I haven't done a summit now for years, and I absolutely love it. I know it's a lot of work. There's a lot of interviews and stuff to be doing, but I am here announcing to everybody that within the next 12 months, I shall be running a summit.
Yes, they happen here. That's awesome.
Happened here.
So excited for you. And obviously we can link up some more. I mean, I'll send some resources to you as well. I have some free resources. We just kind of ramped up some blog content on my site as well. So we have quite a few good resources on summits, free content, even ungated, but you can obviously get on my list if you're more interested in what we are doing as well. So
excellent. We'll put links to all of those articles and everything. We'll put all of those on the blog post page that goes with this interview. So if you're listening to this over on iTunes or something, come over to the blog post, and you will see all of those links, and we'll have a good summary action sheet for what you can be doing. That'll be on that page as well. So go get them, folks, and that's it. I've actually now made it public. So in the next 12 months, there will be a telesummit, a virtual summit being run by Janet.
Yes, awesome. So excited.
Really cool. Okay, thank you so much, Navid, and thank you everybody for being here. Bye.
Bye. Take care.